The stars had been quiet for 107 years. Humanity had made a choice long ago, a choice that the galaxy never understood. They put down their weapons. They stopped building warships. They became healers. Mercy Station Hanel floated in the darkness of space like a small moon made of light. It was the largest hospital humanity had ever built. 12,000 patients filled its rooms at any given time. Some were human. Most were not. There were creatures with scales, creatures with wings, creatures with 6 arms and no eyes. It did not matter what they looked like. If they were sick, if they were dying, Hanel Station would take them in. Dr. Yuna Kim had worked on the station for 15 years. She was 53 years old. With gray hair she kept short and hands that never shook during surgery. She had saved more lives than she could count. Tonight, she stood in the children's ward, looking at the small beds lined up against the curved wall. Through the window, she could see the stars spinning slowly as the station rotated. A young nurse named Sumi walked up beside her. Sumi was only 26, still new to the weight of this work. Her eyes were tired, but kind. "The Valorian child," Sumi said quietly. "He is asking for you again." Yuna nodded and followed her down the hallway. The Valorian boy was small, no more than 8 years old by human counting. His skin was pale blue, and his large dark eyes watched everything with fear. His species had been at war with 3 other races for decades. A bomb had destroyed his home. His parents were dead. He had been floating in an escape pod for 6 days before a human rescue ship found him. When Yuna entered the room, the boy looked up at her. He did not smile. He did not know how to smile anymore. "Dr. Kim," he whispered. His voice was weak. "Will I die?" Yuna sat on the edge of his bed. She took his small hand in hers. His fingers were cold. "No," she said. "I will not let you die. Do you understand me? I made a promise when I became a doctor. I promised to save everyone I could. That includes you." The boy stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he closed his eyes and let himself rest. Sudashmi watched from the doorway. "The other nurses say we should not waste resources on Valorians. They say the Empire is evil." Yuna stood up and walked past her. "The Empire is evil. This child is not. Remember the difference." Captain Desong Choi stood on the command deck of the station's small defense wing. He was 34 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with a scar on his jaw from an accident years ago. His job was to protect Hanel Station, but he had never fired a weapon in his life. The defense wing had only 6 patrol ships, and they carried no missiles. They were meant to guide lost ships, not fight wars. Admiral Taeho Park stood beside him. The admiral was old now, 78 years past. He had fought in the First Contact War, back when humanity still believed in violence. He had seen things that made him stop believing. "Something is wrong," Daesung said. He pointed at his screen. "There is a fleet entering the system. Valorian markings. 37 ships." Taeho leaned forward. His face grew pale. "Those are not rescue ships. Those are warships. Why would they send warships to a hospital?" Taeho did not answer. He did not want to say what he was thinking. Down in the medical bay, Yuna was performing surgery on a patient when the alarms began. Red lights flashed across every hallway. The station's voice spoke calmly as it was programmed to do. "Attention all personnel. Unknown fleet approaching. All patients and staff, please remain calm." Sumi ran into the surgery room. "Dr. Kim, they are Valorian warships. 37 of them. They are not responding to our communications." Yuna's hands stopped moving. She looked down at the patient on her table, an old woman from a mining colony who needed a new heart. Then she looked at Sumi. "Close her up for me," Yuna said quietly. "I need to go to the command deck." When Yuna arrived, Taeho and Daesung were standing before the main window. Outside, the Valorian fleet hung in space like silver knives. The largest ship, the flagship, was 5 times the size of Hanel Station. "They are demanding we hand over all Valorian patients," Daesung said. "They say we are harboring enemies of the Empire." "We are a hospital," Yuna said. "We do not take sides. We heal everyone, told them that, Tejo said. His voice was heavy. They did not care. The communications screen flickered. A Valorian commander appeared on it. He was tall, with cold yellow eyes and a face that showed no mercy. "You have sheltered traitors and enemies," the commander said. "Your neutrality means nothing to us. Surrender the patients or face consequences." Tejo stepped forward. "This station contains 12,000 innocent people. 3,000 staff. There are children here, elderly, people who have nothing to do with your wars. You cannot threaten a hospital." The commander laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. "You humans and your mercy. You think it makes you strong? It makes you weak. It makes you easy." The screen went dark. For a moment, there was silence. Then Daesoon looked at his screen and his face went white. "Air charging weapons," he whispered. Yuna grabbed the communication controls. "All stations? All stations. This is Dr. Kim. Emergency evacuation. Get to the escape pods. Everyone move now." But there was no time. There was never going to be enough time. The first blast hit the eastern wing. The explosion ripped through 3 floors of patient rooms. The second blast hit the reactor section. The third hit the children's ward. Yuna was thrown to the floor. She could hear screaming. She could hear the station breaking apart around her. Through the cracked window, she could see pieces of Hanel Station floating into the void. Beds, medical equipment, Bodhi's, Sumi. Grabbed her arm and pulled her toward an escape pod. Yuna tried to resist, tried to go back, but Sumi was stronger than she looked. "Oh, we have to go," Sumi screamed. "There is nothing left to save." The last thing Yuna saw before the pod door closed was the Valorian flagship turning away. Its mission was complete. 12,000 patients, 3,000 staff, children, elderly, refugees, all of them gone in minutes. The galaxy had forgotten something important about humanity. They had forgotten why humans stopped fighting 107 years ago. It was not because they were weak. It was not because they could not win. It was because when humans went to war, nothing survived. And now the Valorian Empire had just reminded humanity why they used to be so very, very good at violence. The news reached Earth in 3 hours. By the 4th hour, every human in the galaxy knew what had happened. By the 5th hour, the streets of every human city were filled with silence. Not anger. Yet. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Premier Hana Shin stood alone in her office, watching the footage play on her screen for the 10th time. She was 61 years old, with silver-streaked hair and calm eyes that had seen many crises. She had led humanity through trade disputes, border conflicts, and diplomatic nightmares. She had always found a peaceful solution. That was her gift. But as she watched the Hanel Station break apart, she watched the bodies floating into space, she felt something she had not felt in many years. She felt her hands begin to shake. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Premier, the assembly is ready. They are waiting for you." Hana did not respond immediately. She was looking at one image frozen on her screen. A small escape pod tumbling away from the burning station. Inside that pod, she knew, was Dr. Yuna Kim and a young nurse named Sumi. They were among the few survivors. Less than 200 people had escaped from a station of 15,000. "Premier," her assistant said again. Hannah turned off the screen. "I am coming." The United Human Assembly was the largest gathering of human leaders in existence. 3,000 representatives from every human world, every colony, every station. They filled the Great Hall like a sea of faces. When Hana walked to the central platform, she could feel their eyes on her. She could feel their grief. She could feel something else too, something dark and old and hungry. She raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. 72 hours ago, she began, her voice steady. The Valorian Empire attacked Mercy Station Hanel. This was not a military target. It was a hospital. It held 12,000 patients, 3,000 medical staff, children, elderly, refugees from a dozen species who had nowhere else to go. The silence in the hall was absolute. They're all dead, murdered in their beds. Murdered while receiving treatment. Murdered because the Valorian Empire believed that our mercy made us weak. Because they believed that 107 years of peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. In the front row, an old man stood up. His name was General Wu Jinkong, and he was 102 years old. He had fought in the First Contact War. He had been 17 when it ended. He had spent the rest of his life hoping he would never see another one. Premier, he said, his voice rough with age. What are you asking of us? Hana looked at him. Then she looked at the entire assembly. I am asking for war. The word hung in the air. War. Humanity had not spoken that word in over a century. They had built their entire civilization around avoiding it. They had become healers, teachers, builders. They had convinced themselves that violence was behind them. I know what you were thinking, Hana continued. You were thinking that we chose peace, that we swore we would never fight again, that we are better than this. She shook her head slowly. But we did not choose peace because we hated war. We chose peace because we were too good at war. We chose peace because we scared ourselves with what we could do. She pressed a button on her platform. A holographic image appeared above her head. It showed a young woman with tired eyes and a bandage on her forehead. Sumi. This is Sumi Beak. She is 26 years old. She was a nurse on Hanel Station. She survived by pulling Dr. Unikim into an escape pod. She watched the station die. She watched 12,000 patients die. I want you to hear her words. Sumi's recorded voice filled the hall. I was in the children's ward when the first explosion hit. There was a little girl from the Orion colonies. She was 7 years old. She had a lung disease, but she was getting better. She was supposed to go home next week. When the wall broke open, I tried to hold on to her. I tried so hard. But the vacuum pulled her away from me. I watched her float into space. I watched her stop moving. She was 7 years old. 7 years old. The recording stopped. In the assembly, several representatives were crying. Others sat with their fists clenched. Hana spoke again. The Valorian Empire has released a statement. They called Hanel Station a military target. They called 12,000 patients collateral damage. They called our mercy a weakness. She leaned forward. They are wrong. Our mercy is not weakness. Our mercy is the only thing that has kept them alive for 107 years. Because we chose to be kind. Because we chose to heal instead of destroy. Because we chose to forgive old enemies and build something better. But they have made a mistake. They have confused our kindness for an inability to fight. General Wu Jin stepped forward. His old eyes were hard now, filled with something cold. If we go to war, he said slowly, we will not stop until it is finished. You all know what happened in the First Contact War. You all know what humanity did to the 3 empires that attacked us. 2 of them no longer exist. The 3rd surrendered unconditionally and has been our ally ever since. We did not win because we were lucky. We won because when humanity decides to fight, nothing can stand against us. Hana nodded. That is why I'm asking for a vote. Not because I want war. I have spent my entire life working for peace. But there are some things that cannot be answered with words. There are some crimes that demand justice. She looked at the assembly one final time. They attacked a hospital. They killed children in their beds. They laughed and called it acceptable. So I ask you now, all of you, what is your answer? The vote was unanimous. For the first time since the founding of the United Human Assembly, every single representative voted the same way. 3,000 hands raised. 3,000 voices speaking as one. War deep beneath the surface of 17 hidden moons. In shipyards that had been silent for a century, lights began to turn on. Dormant Fleet 7, the secret military that humanity had kept hidden even from itself, began to awaken. General Wu Jin stood before a holographic display showing 10,000 warships. Their engines were powering up. Their weapons were coming online. Each ship was more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They forgot, he said quietly. They forgot why we stopped fighting. It was not because we could not win. Behind him, the first warship began to move toward the stars. It was because when we fight, no one else survives. 3 months passed. The galaxy watched in growing horror as humanity transformed itself. For 107 years, the other species had thought of humans as soft, kind, weak. They ran hospitals. They built schools. They rescued refugees and healed the wounded, and spoke of peace at every diplomatic gathering. Many species had come to see humans as harmless. Like gentle creatures who had no claws and no fangs, they were wrong. Lieutenant Hee-Ji Lee sat in the cockpit of her fighter ship. Running through combat simulations for the 100th time, she was 29 years old, with short black hair and eyes that burned with cold fire. Her parents had both been doctors on Hanel's station. They had died holding hands in the Eastern Medical Wing. She had watched the security footage. She had memorized every second of it. Her squadron commander, a man named Captain Junho, walked up to her cockpit and knocked on the glass. "Lieutenant Lee, you have been in that simulator for 12 hours. You need to rest." Hee-Ji did not look at him. "I will rest when the Valorians are dead." Junho sighed. He understood her pain. Everyone in the fleet understood it. But revenge without discipline was just destruction. "Your parents were healers," he said gently. "They saved lives. They would not want you to become a monster." Hee-Ji finally looked at him. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "My parents saved a Valorian child. They spent 3 weeks keeping him alive when everyone said he would die, and then the Valorian Empire murdered them for it." She turned back to her simulation. "I am not becoming a monster. I am becoming the thing that monsters fear." Across human space, the hidden shipyards worked without rest. Ships that had been dormant for a century were repaired and upgraded. New weapons were installed. New shields were fitted. The engineers who built them worked in shifts, never stopping, never slowing down. Dr. Yuna Kim stood on the observation deck of a medical cruiser, watching a fleet of warships pass by. There were hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation toward the border. Each one was larger than Hanel Station had been. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. She felt sick looking at them. Sudashmi came to stand beside her. The young nurse had changed in the 3 months since the attack. She was quieter now, harder. The kindness was still there, but it was buried beneath something else. "You saved the Valorian boy," Sumi said. "The one on the station. I heard he survived." Yuna nodded slowly. "His name was Tal. He was in the escape pod next to ours. I made sure he was evacuated before the eastern wing collapsed." "Do you regret it?" Yuna was silent for a long moment. "I have asked myself that question every day since the attack. If I had let him die, would the Empire have attacked? Did they see my mercy as weakness? Did my kindness kill 15,000 people?" She turned to look at Sumi. "But then I remember his face. He was just a child. A scared child who had lost everything. He did not attack the station. He did not give the order. He was just a boy who needed help." She shook her head. "I cannot regret saving a child, even if that child belongs to my enemy." Far away, in the heart of the Valorian Empire, Ambassador Sung Hono walked through the halls of the Imperial Palace. He was 55 years old, a career diplomat who had spent his life finding peaceful solutions to impossible problems. This was his final mission. The Emperor sat on a throne made of black crystal. He was old for a Valorian, over 200 years past, with skin like pale marble and eyes like burning stars. He had ruled his empire for 80 years. He had never lost a war. Sung Ho stopped before the throne and bowed his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, I come on behalf of the United Human Government. I am here to deliver our terms." The Emperor laughed. Around him, his guards laughed too. "Terms? You come to give me terms? Your species runs hospitals. You heal wounds. You rescue children. What could you possibly threaten me with?" Sung Ho remained calm. He had expected this reaction. 107 years ago, humanity fought the First Contact War. 3 empires attacked our colonies. They believed we were weak because we had not developed weapons as quickly as other species. They believed we would be easy to conquer. He paused. Two of those empires no longer exist. The third surrendered and begged for mercy. Do you know why, Your Majesty? The Emperor's smile faded slightly. Ancient history. Your species has grown soft since then. We have not grown soft. We chose to stop fighting. There is a difference. Sung Ho straightened his shoulders. Here are our terms. Unconditional surrender. Full war crime tribunals for every officer involved in the attack on Hanel Station. Reparations to the families of the dead. And public acknowledgement of your crimes. The Emperor stared at him in disbelief. Then he began to laugh again. You threaten me? With your hospital ships and your rescue crews? I command the largest fleet in the galaxy. I have conquered 47 species. I am the Valorian Emperor, and you are nothing but a messenger from a species of cowards. Sung Ho did not flinch. I am required to inform you that if you refuse these terms, humanity will declare total war. We will not stop until your empire is destroyed. Every ship, every station, every military installation, we will tear it all down and salt the earth beneath it. His eyes were cold with rage. You dare? You dare threaten me in my own palace? He drew a blade from his robes and walked toward Sung Ho. The ambassador did not step back. He did not show fear. My life means nothing, Sung Ho said calmly. Kill me if you wish. It will not change what is coming. You attacked a hospital. You murdered children. And now you will pay for it. The Emperor stabbed him through the heart. Sung Ho fell to the ground, still looking at the Emperor with calm eyes. The recording device hidden in his clothing broadcast his death to every human world. Premier Hana watched the footage in her office. Her hands did not shake this time. Her heart did not break. There was no more room for grief. There was only cold purpose. She pressed a button on her desk. General Kang, begin the operation. Cross human space. 10,000 warships turned toward the Valorian border. Their weapons were armed. Their crews were ready. The storm had gathered. Now it would fall. The first battle happened at a place called Margin Gate. It was a strategic jump point, a doorway between human space and the Valorian Empire. The Valorians had stationed 300 warships there. They believed it was more than enough. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived in silence. 200 ships against 300. The Valorian commander laughed when he saw the numbers. He ordered his fleet to attack. Lieutenant Hyen-Ji Lee flew her fighter in the Vanguard Squadron. Her Calson was Ghost 7, but by the end of this day, she would have a new name. The Valorian ships fired first. Their weapons were powerful, designed to tear through shields and armor. They had conquered 47 species with those weapons. They had never failed. They failed now. The human ships moved in ways the Valorians had never seen. They did not fight in lines. They did not hold formations. They flowed around the enemy like water around rocks, always moving, always striking, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. Hyen-Ji dove her fighter toward the Valorian flagship. It was the largest ship in their fleet, the same class of ship that had destroyed Hanel Station. She could see its weapons turning toward her. She could see death coming. She did not care. Her fighter twisted through the first barrage. Then the second. Then the third. She was flying faster than the Valorian targeting systems could track. Behind her, her squadron followed in perfect formation. Go squadron, she said into her communicator. Target the flagship's reactor core. On my mark, 12 fighters fired at once. 12 missiles struck the same point on the flagship's hull. The explosion tore through the ship's interior. Secondary explosions followed. Within 30 seconds, the flagship was breaking apart. The Valorian fleet tried to retreat. They never got the chance. When the battle ended, all 300 Valorian ships were destroyed. The human fleet had lost 17. The galaxy watched the footage in stunned silence. They had forgotten what humans were capable of. General Wu Zhen stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the debris field drift past. Sir, one of his officers said, the Valorian survivors are requesting rescue. Wu Jin was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Pick them up. All of them. Send them to the medical ships for treatment. The officer looked surprised. Sir, after what they did to Hanel Station? Wu Zhen turned to look at him. His old eyes were tired but steady. We are not like them. We destroy their fleets. We burn their military installations, but we do not murder prisoners. We do not kill the helpless. That is the difference between us and them. That is why we will win. Over the next 6 months, the war continued. But it was not really a war. It was a reckoning. The human fleet moved through Valorian space like a wildfire. They destroyed military bases and shipyards. They captured weapons factories and supply stations. They freed 18 worlds that the Empire had conquered, and everywhere they went, they did something the Valorians never expected. They helped. On a world called Sierra 3, the human forces arrived to find a population starving. The Valorian occupation had taken all their food. Within hours, human supply ships were landing, distributing rations, setting up medical stations. An old alien woman approached Captain Junho as he supervised the distribution. I do not understand, she said, her voice shaking. You are warriors. You just destroyed the Valorian fleet that was oppressing us. Why do you give us food? Why do you heal our sick? Junho smiled gently. Because that is what we do. We fight when we must, but we heal whenever we can. The woman began to cry. She had never seen a species like this. Warriors who killed with terrible efficiency, then knelt down to bandage wounds and feed the hungry. The humans fight like demons, she whispered, but they heal like angels. The phrase spread across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered by the Valorians began to hope. Some of them joined the human fleet as guides. Others provided intelligence. The Valorian Empire, which had seemed invincible for centuries, began to crumble. Dr. Yuna worked on a hospital ship that followed the fleet. Every day wounded were brought to her. Some were human, some were former Valorian soldiers. She treated them all the same. One day, a Valorian officer was brought to her surgery table. He had been the commander of a cruiser. His ship had been destroyed, and he was dying. Why? He whispered as she worked to save his life. Why do you help me? My people killed yours? My people destroyed your station. Una did not stop working. Her hands moved with steady precision. Because you are a patient. Because you are dying. Because I am a doctor, and saving lives is what I do. She looked at him with calm eyes. Your empire murdered my friends. Your emperor laughed at our mercy. But I will not become like you. I will not let hatred turn me into a monster. The officer stared at her. Then, slowly, tears began to fall from his eyes. I am sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry. I know, Yuna said. Now be quiet and let me save your life. As the months passed, the Valorian military collapsed faster than anyone had predicted. Their technology was powerful, but their tactics were rigid. They had never faced an enemy that adapted as quickly as humans did. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to know exactly what they would do before they did it. General Wu Zhen explained it to his officers after the 14th major victory. 107 years ago, we stopped fighting because we scared ourselves. We looked at what we had become, and we did not like it. We were too good at war, too efficient, too ruthless. So we chose to become something else. We chose to be healers. We looked out the window at the fleet moving through space. But we never forgot how to fight. We just chose not to. And now they have reminded us. 6 months after the war began, the human fleet arrived at the Valorian homeworld. Billions of Valorians looked up at the sky and saw 10,000 warships blocking out the stars. The emperor hid in his palace. His fleet was gone. His military was shattered. He had nothing left. Premier Hana broadcast a message to the entire planet. People of the Valorian Empire, your emperor attacked a hospital. He murdered 15,000 innocent people. He killed our children. He laughed at our mercy. We are here for justice. Surrender him to us, and we will not harm your civilians. Protect him, and we will tear this world apart to find him. She paused. You have 1 hour to decide." The hour passed. Then the palace gates opened, and the emperor was pushed out by his own guards. They had chosen survival over loyalty. The reckoning was complete. The Valorian emperor stood in chains before the Galactic Tribunal. Representatives from 112 species watched as the charges were read: murder, war crimes, genocide, the destruction of a neutral medical facility, the execution of a diplomatic ambassador. The list went on for 3 hours. Premier Hunna sat in the front row. Her face showed nothing, no satisfaction, only a deep, heavy tiredness. War had a cost, even when it was justified. Even when it was won, the emperor spoke only once during the entire trial. "I did what was necessary for my empire," he said. "The strong rule the weak. That is the law of the universe. You humans pretend to be peaceful, but look at what you did to my fleet. Look at what you did to my military. You are no different from me." Una stood up. The entire court went silent. "You are wrong," she said. "You destroyed a hospital because you thought it would send a message. You killed children because you believed mercy was weakness. You murdered our ambassador because you thought you were untouchable." She walked toward him slowly. "We destroyed your fleets because they stood between us and justice. We shattered your military because it protected a war criminal. But we did not touch your civilians. We did not bomb your cities. We did not murder your children in their beds." She stopped in front of him. "That is the difference between us. You kill because you can. We kill only when we must, and then we stop." The emperor was found guilty on all charges. He would spend the rest of his life in a prison built specifically for him, on a small moon where he would never see his people again. It was a mercy he did not deserve, but it was the human way. They did not believe in execution. They believed in justice. Lieutenant Hyung Lee stood before a memorial wall on Earth. It was carved from white stone, and it held the names of everyone who had died on Heinel Station. 15,000 names. She found her parents near the middle, Dr. Kim Sungmin, Dr. Park Yoon-mi. They had been married for 31 years. They had died holding hands. Captain Junho found her there as the sun was setting. "You did good work out there," he said quietly. "Your parents would be proud." Yanji shook her head. "I killed a lot of people. I destroyed ships. I burned stations. I do not think my parents would be proud of that. You did what was necessary. And then you stopped." Junho put a hand on her shoulder. "That is what makes you different from them. You could have kept killing. You could have let the hatred consume you. But you chose to stop when the fighting was done." Hyung touched her parents' names on the wall. Her fingers traced the carved letters. "Still dream about them," she whispered. "Every night. I see them in the Eastern Medical Wing. I see the explosion. I see them reaching for each other." She closed her eyes. "I am so tired of seeing it." "It will get better," Junho said. "Not today. Not tomorrow. But eventually, the dreams will fade. The pain will soften. And you will remember them for who they were, not for how they died." Across human space, the fleet returned to dormancy. The shipyards went quiet. The weapons were stored away. Humanity began to rebuild what the war had broken. Dr. Yuna was offered a position leading the Reconstruction Medical Corps. Her job would be to build new hospitals, train new doctors, and heal the wounds the war had left behind. She accepted without hesitation. "This is what we do," she said at her acceptance ceremony. "We fight when we must. But we always return to healing. That is who we are." Sumi became an ambassador. She traveled to the worlds that had been freed from Valorian occupation, telling humanity's story. She spoke of Hanel's station. She spoke of the attack. She spoke of the war. "We are not warriors by choice," she told the gathered crowds. "We build hospitals. We rescue refugees. We heal the sick and comfort the dying. For 107 years, we chose peace. We chose mercy. We chose to believe that kindness was stronger than violence." She paused. "The Valorian Empire thought that made us weak. They attacked a hospital. They murdered children. They laughed at our mercy. And then they learned the truth. Her voice grew hard. Do not mistake our kindness for an inability to fight. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness. We chose peace because we are too good at war. And if you force us to fight again, we will remind you why. General Wu Zhen retired after the war. He was 103 years old, and he had seen enough conflict for several lifetimes. His last order was to return the fleet to hidden status. We proved our point, he said in his final address. The galaxy will remember what we did. They will remember that humanity can be the deadliest force in existence when provoked. But more importantly, they will remember that we chose to stop. We chose to rebuild instead of conquer. We chose to heal instead of rule. He looked at the young officers gathered before him. No? That is the human way. We fight like demons when we must, but we heal like angels when the fighting is done. Never forget that. Never become the thing you fought against. 10 years passed. A new station orbited the Valorian homeworld. It was called Hanel Station 2, and it was twice as large as the original. 12,000 patients filled its rooms. Some were human. Most were not. Some were VLORIAN. Dr. Yuna, now 63 years old, walked through the children's ward. Her hair was completely gray now, but her hands were still steady. She stopped at a room near the end of the hall. Inside, a young Valorian doctor was treating a sick child. The doctor's name was Tal. He was the same boy Yuna had saved on the original Hanal station all those years ago. He had grown up hearing stories about the human doctor who had saved his life. When he was old enough, he had enrolled in a human medical school. Now he worked on the station that bore the name of the place where his life had been saved. Yuna watched him for a moment. He was gentle with the child, patient, kind, just like she had been with him. Tal looked up and saw her watching. He smiled. Dr. Kim, I did not see you there. You were doing good work, she said. Your patients are lucky to have you. Tal walked over to her. His eyes were filled with something deep and grateful. You saved my life, he said. When everyone said you should let me die, you refused. You treated me like I mattered. Even though my people were your enemies, Yuna nodded. Yes, I did. Why? She smiled gently. Because you were a scared child who needed help. That is all that mattered. Tal was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. What? I became a doctor because of you. I wanted to be like you. I wanted to save lives the way you saved mine. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not fight them, and the cycle continues, she whispered. That is all we can ever hope for. That the mercy we show today becomes the mercy others show tomorrow. Outside the station, the stars spun slowly. Somewhere in the galaxy, there would always be violence. There would always be hatred. There would always be those who believed that strength meant cruelty, but there would also be humans. Building hospitals. Healing wounds. Teaching others that mercy was not weakness. And if anyone ever forgot that lesson, if anyone ever attacked another hospital, if anyone ever murdered another child, humanity would be there to remind them. They remembered why they stopped fighting. And now the galaxy remembered why they started. Some lessons only need to be taught once.